Hello and welcome. I just wanted to say to try and be aware of your biases whilst you watch this video. For example, look at the room at the moment that you're in. Count how many brown things there are in it. Close your eyes. How many blue things could you see? Well, you were probably looking for all the brown things, so you weren't looking at the blue things. Now, why do I say this? Because we often only see what we are actively looking for, to be honest. And that can be the case for our thoughts on anything in life. We often reinforce our views by only looking for the things that we are aiming at. And that can be an impediment to us, or impediment, because it can really get in the way of looking at the whole picture. And I think that's an important place to be when we look at other styles of games, be that OSR and D&D. They all have different aspects. A 6 is a 9, depending on what way you're looking at it. And with that in mind, please enjoy my biased video. Hello and welcome back to another video. This week, because my previous video, if you're not watching these, well, you're watching them out of order, was about why people dislike the OSR, why they hate the OSR even. Well, I want to talk to you about why you should actually love the OSR and why actually it's a really good thing. Now, let's start off from modern day perspective for role-playing. How big are podcasts like Critical Role or Hello High Rollers, things like that? Really big. And what do they have in them? They have huge amounts of role play. They have people doing voices if they want to do voices. They've got interaction with the scenery and the other characters. They've got people basically acting. Really, these are actors. A lot of them are qualified actors and voiceover actors. And these are people that are acting, and they're acting out the scenes, and they're acting out what they're doing, and they're using the 5th edition engine for it. But the popularity with them is, compared to a lot of tables, they are acting it all out, and they're popular for a reason because of that. Because it's being acted out, it makes the game look cool, makes it look brilliant. But that is what the OSR is. Everybody will conflate OSR with it's just dungeon crawling. It's just dungeon crawling, that's all you do, and then it's very deadly and you might die. Well, it is. Yeah, I won't lie to you. It is. Well, it's not just dungeon crawling, but it is very deadly. But what it also is an opportunity to role play what you do far more than, for example, in 5th edition. So let's give you an example. Say, for example, in 5th edition, I am checking a room for traps. Not even checking a room. I am checking there's a door that I want to see if there's a trap on it, because I suspect there's a trap on that door. What would be the go-to? I'd like to check that door for traps. And then you might even describe, yeah, I'm going to look the door up and down. I'm looking at the keyhole. I'm going to place a stick in the keyhole to see if a dart comes out while standing to the side, something like that. What's going to happen? Roll for perception, or sleight of hand, or a thieves' tool, something like that. You think, fair enough. However, what if the actual trap mechanism is that if something is stuck in the keyhole, there's a little dart that comes out and stabs you? Well, in OSR, you do get thieves who get to roll for traps, and that is an advantage that thieves get because they're skill monkeys. They're one of the only skill monkeys in the game, and they have skills for all sorts of things. But in general in OSR, you don't just get, I want to find a secret door. You shouldn't. What you would get is, I have done this action. I have undertaken this action. I have put a stick, a small stick, something that, or a pinhole, cubby pin, something, whatever you've got, and the game master, the dungeon master, might say, yep, a trap comes flying out. You haven't had to roll because you've undertaken the action that you needed to get the effect of the trap. You have said. Whereas a lot of the time in newer editions of D&D, it's automatic. You've described the thing that you want to do, and it would have the mechanical effect in real life, but still you've got to make an arbitrary dice roll to see if you've managed to do this in real life, even though you've described that I'm doing it. Well, in OSR you don't. But even if you don't think to do that. The thief has the ability to check for traps in general if you want them to, but even then with the thief in OSR, you try to be more specific what you're checking for traps. And in OSR, for example, you would be saying, don't just check for secret doors. I'm looking at the east wall and I'm moving my torch closer to it, looking for any indents that might give the telltale signs of a hidden passageway. And then the dungeon master might describe to you, yes, you feel the wind blowing slightly. It seems to flicker on the flame away from what must be an opening. It's not just, you've perception, there's a door there or anything. Though both sides of the game, newer or older, you can be descriptive. But in OSR style games, it is more often your players' decisions. What you decide to do as a person is going to get the result. What could be more role play than that? What could be more acting out the fantasy of what you're doing than that, compared to I'm going to make a roll and that's going to decide everything. No matter what I role play, no matter what I do, it's decided by a dice. And the same often for OSR. In D&D 5th edition, you roll a nat 20, double damage. Or in Pathfinder, you roll the dice, 2 damage dice or something like that. In OSR, you roll a natural 20, you could give double damage, though the hit points are often much lower for a lot of the monsters. What often happens with a natural 20, yes, you slap the monster and you swing your blade at the orc, and the orc falls into another orc, and they're both on the floor. They both lose their next turn. OSR is more evocative of things happening in the scope of the story. And I believe that is what it is. And you roll a 1. Oh, you drop your blade. Your sword gets stuck in a cobblestone on the dungeon floor. Or your sword goes flying off out of your hand. Or you trip, you fall over. Something very, just very palpable happens in the combat. Or not just in the combat. If you were to decide to make dice rolls, as I said in the last video, ability, score, and under in OSR. Also, OSR, if you choose to use the roll the ability score and under, makes your numbers for your attributes actually mean something, because in modern D&D they don't. You just get the bonuses, and Pathfinder Remaster has just done away with the numbers entirely. You just get the bonuses because that's what matters. In OSR, those numbers mean something. If you choose to roll under attribute, they do mean something, though as I did allude to in my previous video, those numbers generally tend to be static unless you find a magic item or something to bolster those scores up. They tend to be static and don't move with levels, so that is a disadvantage. But as you can see, OSR Dungeons and Dragons is actually much more story driven. And in Pathfinder or D&D, you have feats which allow you to do things. And that's the whole point of OSR. You don't need those feats. You don't need that. You are limited by your imagination, which you should be in games like 5th edition and Pathfinder. However, they especially codify much of what you can do into rules, which is where you seem to get this, then you get the crossover. So then you get, some people like to roll dice. I want to roll a dice. I've bought these flipping dice. I want to roll them. It doesn't mean you don't ever roll dice in OSR. You still roll dice, and you might seem to do these abstract things like roll a die 6 to look for a secret door if you're describing in a certain area where you're looking for it for. But also, in OSR, if you actually look and describe that you're looking for a secret door where it is, you'll just find it anyway, for example. Or if you try a feat, I want to jump through the ogre's legs, roll through them, and then actually hit them through the midriff as I'm coming through, or stab them from behind, and then we're flanking. Can I get a bonus for trying to do that? And the DM will say, yeah, of course you can have a bonus of doing that. And you make it up as you go along, which some people like, some people don't. Some people want to make and need to make those rolls, especially people who come from a wargaming background, for example, or people who play board games a lot. They're like, I want to make these rolls. I want to do these things. So you can see it from both sides, but I would wager if your passion and where you've come from is from these podcast D&D games, nobody does it better than OSR games for acting out what you want to do. They just, to me, subjectively a better system to run if you're going to want to be concentrating on acting. Whereas people who aren't used to doing that, they might be better suited to D&D 5th edition, because then, well, I'm just going to make the roll and I'm not too certain on what I want to do. Then that's fine also. But those rules are there also in OSR. You can, as a thief, just look generically for traps in a certain location and try and find them. That's what made the thief so valuable. Things like that. But it is often, for example, arcana checks, things like that. Well, it's thought that the wizard most probably know what they're looking at, and you probably give it to the wizard. But even if you didn't, you can make a roll for under intelligence or something like that. Or there is rolled in certain OSR games percentile chances to understand magic text if you can understand a new spell that you're looking at. But you can use these things to create those rolls if you need to. But OSR is just much more, for me, freeform. It's a great place to come from and start role-playing. And it's so flippin' easy to run. You don't need to have memorized tons and tons of rules. I can sit down with my friends, run an OSR game, and we can pretty much... We've got these base rules of rolling die 20s for attacks and maybe under ability scores or percentile rolls and a die 6 to see if you're surprised or find a secret door, etc. But you've just got this much more freeform game that you can just run, and it's so easy as a dungeon master to run the game. And I love that about the OSR. I really do, because it's so freeform. You just don't get that with newer editions of the game. So those are my thoughts on why I genuinely believe that the OSR, if you are coming from a place of liking Critical Role, you are coming from a place of hella high rollers or elsewhere, which I've done, and you want that roleplay experience, well, you should actually be playing an OSR style game, or at least give it a try. I mean, of course, as I will always say, everything is subjective. I love 5th edition D&D. I'm running a campaign now. I love Pathfinder. I've got a campaign sort of stalled, but in the pipeline for Pathfinder. I love OSR. I've got a campaign going there. And there's nothing wrong with liking any systems, but I'm just saying why you should give OSR a chance, because of the freeformness of it. It's just so much easier. Anyway, those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts? Do let me know. Let me know if I'm wrong. Let me know if I'm right. Try and have a balanced view of it. See how it can be true from one point of view, but it can be true from the other point of view. It's for me, balance is important. We can't just go around saying our system's the best and the other one's rubbish. Or trash. We can't go around saying, well, we can go around saying that. We can say whatever we like, but if you're trying to be objective about things, both systems have merits, both systems have flaws, but OSR deserves, I think, a lot of love for what it does and that old system. So give it a go if you haven't given it a go. Please do. And as I've said before, there are free systems out there. Basic Fantasy RPG you can download for free. You can get it for about £4 a soft cover copy off Amazon. White Box RPG, you can get it for about £3 off Amazon. No money on as a download. Swords and Wizardry is a bit more expensive, but that's a great game that I've been reading, but you can get it very cheap, the PDF version. Give it a go. OSR games are cheap as chips, and costs you nothing to try them out. So try them out, see how they play. And remember, you can do anything you can do anything in any Dungeons & Dragons games, but you can really play around with what you can do. You are not limited by your feats. You are not limited by those at all. You cannot just be told, no, you can't do that. You can do anything in an OSR game. You really can. Well, you can't go flying off into the sunset, obviously, but you can try anything that you would think. You're not at the mercy of codified rules. So give it a go. Much love to everyone for watching. Take care. All the best to you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.